I turn a few pages later into the book, and there's a description of how animals that are trying to accomplish something, eat, mate, find water, accomplish the requirements of living. It requires a narrow visual focus. This is something my lab is kind of obsessed with, and I've been obsessed with. And in that more narrow visual focus, we know that the playbook becomes more narrow. The rule set is more narrow. Mm-hmm. Now, at some point, in order to come up with a new creative idea, that means broadening vision is essential in some way, or broadening thinking.
Well, it could either be a broadening or a narrowing, but it's changing the aperture from the standard. The reason we do this is to present something new that maybe you already knew but didn't know you knew it. And for that to be the case, you have to be looking at it. It's not unlike what a comedian does. Comedian makes you laugh. Usually what they're saying, it's outrageous, but you know that it's right. Just no one says it that way, or no one has said it that way before. But it's always the truth in it that makes it funny. It's like that. It's the same idea as recognizing something that seems really obvious once you see it, but seems like nobody else sees it or no one else points it out. And I feel like science is like that too, because how much of science, once the light flashes over your head, it's like, I got it. It just seems like, we knew that forever. No one knew it, but do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's absolutely so obvious.
Absolutely.
It's so obvious. And I think another superpower of artists is this accepting we don't know anything. When we think we know things, that also limits our world. We think we know, it's only like this. This is all that's possible. We're mice in this little box. But in reality, who's to say that's the case? Who's to say we could take all of the what we believe in science now and decide to throw all of that away and start from scratch. And we'd probably create a whole different one.
Offline conversation. One time you asked a good friend of mine who's been a guest on this podcast, Eddie Chang, who's chair of neurosurgery. And I would place him in the top 1% of neuroscientists. He's pulling speech out of people who are completely paralyzed with locked-in syndrome, et cetera. And you asked him, what percentage of what's contained in medical textbooks and training
today? Yeah. If you went to medical school today,
right,
and you learned what was in the textbook, what percentage of that information is accurate and what percentage is not? And he said, maybe half.
Right. And you asked, and what is the consequence of that? And he said, incalculable. And I completely agree. And I asked him a second time, and he still came up with the same answer. So that's a good sign. Reliability from experiment to the next is good. Yeah, I think that there is this idea that we really know things. In science, I mean, we've observed amazing discoveries from chance. We've observed amazing discoveries from incredible bouts of hard work. In both cases, people were spending a lot of time in the lab. Like, no one walked into the lab, saw something one day, and had a Nobel Prize winning discovery or fundamental discovery. They were all hanging out in lab a lot. Just some of them came up with something that they didn't expect. Others were drilling toward an answer.
And in all those cases, when the breakthroughs happen, I'm guessing, I don't know this, that considering we assume this information, then this discovery is true based on everything that came before it. But if everything that came before it is wrong, then the discoveries are probably built on do you know what I'm saying? It's like the context, everything that happens takes into account that the context that it's sitting in, it fits in that context. Maybe that context isn't right. Who knows? We don't know. So I'm saying we're too close to most things in thinking when we think we know things, where there are a lot of assumptions that go into it, and that any new discoveries are essentially built on top of these beliefs, you know? But they're beliefs.